Happy birthday, Jay.
Shabbat tov.
Shabbat tov. My very best wishes on your birthday, Jay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have to get my Gemara, excuse me. Kristen said there's a package downstairs for you.
A glass of water. Yes, sir.
What do you mean? Olivia, what dock are we on? Olivia, do you know what dock we're on? Oh, I think you're on mute still. Oof, man, that. Is Ellie supposed to be teaching this weekend? I still don't hear you. Are you on mute?
Yes, I believe that right now it's during the week. It's Monday, Tuesday. It's Dove, and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is Rabbi David and Eliezer or Miriam during the weekend.
Okay.
But we didn't receive an email this Friday about it.
Yeah, usually, right. I was concerned as well because usually he or Miriam write something. Maybe I'll.
Eliezer or Miriam, unless it could be at 45. It could be at 45, at 9:45, like last week. Last week it started at 9:45.
It says in the bulletin 9:30, but I can.
9:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe not everyone read the bulletin.
Okay. So should we maybe, let's see, phone Miriam or Eliezer? Is it quicker? I don't have their phone. Are you emailing them?
Yeah, I'm emailing the group right now.
Okay.
Hey, I was just calling to wish you a happy birthday. I was hoping that I would be able to just talk to you, but I'm guessing you're still shopping. So, happy birthday. I love you. I will talk to you another time. This is Jeanette right away. Bye. Girl, keep it. What's your name? No. And what do you say? Happy birthday to you.
I send an email. We'll see what that has.
Birthday to you. James, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, James. What else you want to tell? You want to go kiss? Let's say have a good day. Bye. Happy birthday. Send me more love. Have a great day. And for you.
Okay.
Hi, Shabbat Tov. So Ellie said that Dov is going to be teaching at 9:45.
Thank you very much.
Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov.
Shabbat Tov.
Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.
What did everyone use for Havdalah? What beverage?
Sorry, James?
What beverage did you use for Havdalah?
Grape juice.
Grape juice.
Snapple.
What flavor?
The only one, peach.
Oh, excuse me.
What did you use?
Livia? Livia?
Livia, what did you did you use for Havdalah? What did you drink?
Grape juice. I mean, my husband drank grape juice.
What about you, James?
We use kombucha.
Come
Okay.
We were going back and forth all Shabbos. I finally found where it said you could use grape juice since it's not wine and it's kind of covered Shabbos. But then we decided since our shul, grape juice is the very important drink that we always use, that we shouldn't use grape juice just for our shul.
Yeah. Interesting approach. All right. Well, no, got one more minute.
Are you starting? You're teaching tonight, Rabbi?
I am.
Wow. I'm so happy I'm here.
I'm so happy you're here also. On Friday, we got up to the Mishnah on Kuf Mem Amabet. Tonight is Kuf Mem Aleph. And I guess especially because both Miriam and Jeff are here, but I know that everybody, although we did not, but just continuing to think about David Quint and missing him, and particularly appropriate to learn Daf Yomi in his memory, given the many years that he taught Daf Yomi at RJC. And so continuing that. Again, we were at the Mishnah, Kuf Mem Amabet. we're gonna touch now a little bit on the issues of muksa, and particularly muksa mas gufo and mukmas. Yeah. All right. So gorfen lofnei haptem. So you can sweep out the stuff that's left in in the trough before an ox. And you can move the whatever is extra to the side in order to sort of like avoid the crap that's there. So Divrei Rabbi Dosa, that's what Rabbi Dosa says. Come say that no, you can't move it, and we're going to see exactly why in a moment. So notlim ifnei behema zo, v'nosnim lifnei behema zo b'Shabbos. But you can. So then another ruling. We're going to see whether So we'll see more in details in a moment. But you can take food from one animal and put it in front of another animal on Shabbos, and we'll see at the end of today, that's not is not a universal thing, and that there may be certain situations where you cannot.
In the first case, he's just clearing a path for his ox to walk? No.
This is in order to ensure that they don't eat the stuff that you want, to make sure that they eat the stuff that you want them to, and not the stuff that you don't want them.
Okay.
So Ibailahu, they ask, Rabbanan, the rabbis in the Mishnah, are Reisha Pligi? Are they? So again, we had two rules, right? The sweeping out of the feeding trough, and then moving the excess fodder. So those are the two things that you could do. And so the question is sort of like, are the Rabbanan Reisha Pligi? Were they arguing about the first statement? Aseifa Pligi? Or were they arguing about the second statement? Tarvaihu Pligi? Or were they actually arguing about both of them? If we take a look at Rashi, Rashi explains, so Reishi Pligi, so Gorfim, the Asri Legrof, Mishum Depamim, Abus Shal Karka, the Kamachavin La Shvuye, Humos, Shalo Yiplu Has Orim Tocho. So the concern is, in this particular case, according to Rashi, the way he's understanding it, is that the concern is that if we allow the sweeping of the food away, you'll end up the bottom of the trough will be sort of like dirt, and there will be holes in the dirt, and you'll end up flattening those holes, and that in of itself is a problem in his malacha. All right, so that's the consider with issue number one. Aseifa Pligi mishum delo chazi sheyesh bo shenimas mibindras raglav. Right, so that because it's so not fit that we're concerned that it would be an issue of muksa. So Tashma, I'm sorry. So so Tashma, the rabbis. So come and learn. We'll see the answer. The Tanya was brisa b'chachamim omrim echad zeh ve'echad zeh yisal kenon l'tzadin. Right. So both that both the dirt in the trough and the feed before it becomes ruined, both of them cannot be moved. So obviously they argue on both in both situations. So Amar Rochista says, Machlokas be'evus shel karka, is this dispute about, so again, touching on the issue that Rashi raised, is it only where the bottom of the avus is, the bottom of the trough is dirt, or aval be'evus shel kli the divrei hakol mutter, and therefore, and everybody would say that if the trough were sort of a utensil that didn't have that just a clay bowl, then everybody would say you would be able to sweep it out. Or be'evus shel karka right. So that's the question. So the Gemara then says be'evus shel karka mi'ika l'man deshari. Would anybody actually permit if it was actually made of earth? So hakamash v'gumos, if it was actually the bottom of the thing was made of earth, well, then you would actually be covering, evening out the holes. So it must be that this is what Rav Chisda said. That the only argument that in our Mishnah is about a utensil where it's a kli, because and does not have a dirt bottom. So imagine sort of like if you imagine like a big wood trough that the animals eat from, if you have that on the ground, so that's the case where the trough is sort of like the bottom is dirt. But if you imagine having it, with a wood bottom, and then you just put the food in it, so that would be a kli. And so that's where they're arguing about everybody would say that it's prohibited. And again, it would be prohibited because, sorry?
It's not a case of grama if the bottom's dirt. I mean, it's
so
definitely
the question
going to happen. It's something
the question is it eno miskaven, so that you're no intention, and therefore, so the understanding is that either we're dealing with a situation where it must be a psik reisha, that it certainly would happen, or that it's there's a concern that you'll come to do it intentionally if we allow it to happen. But bottom line is that and then even with a kli, the rabbis actually said that they essentially made a gzeira, that there's a concern that if we allow you to do it, so then you'll come to smooth it out, even not so.
You could say that every time there's lo mitkaven, you could say that every time.
Yes. Yeah, I hear it.
You could get rid of the whole category because you could just say, if we let you do this unintentionally, you come to do it intentionally.
Well, yeah, that's a good question.
Is there some specific benefit to having that smooth bottom dirt trough, smoothing out the holes?
Not that I'm aware of. Okay. I think it's just it's
aesthetics.
Well, I guess the main benefit is that the food doesn't get sunk in there and get stuck in there.
Okay, what about planting maybe?
No. It's definitely, that's not the implication is that if you have holes, right? So then the food will end up in the holes because the food is small particles, right? Is like seeds, and so you end up with the food in the holes as opposed to above, and so it becomes more difficult, and maybe the animals can't reach it if it's all the way down there. So therefore, you may want the smoother surface so that when you put the feed in, you have it's on something and is more reachable for the animals.
Okay.
But it's a good question about why, maybe wouldn't you be able to effectively say in every situation that if we make this kind of gzeira, so why don't you make this gzeira everywhere and say any situation of Eino Miskaven is we should make a gzeira of, maybe you'll come to do it. So I have to think about that. I'm gonna write that down and I'll get back to us tomorrow, God willing.
Not giving yourself a lot of time here.
Well, whatever. I'll try and have the answer tomorrow morning. So
okay. We'll give you a pass if it's not.
All right. Worst comes to worst, I'll bring it on Monday. Okay. So the question is why not?
I don't know if this is a factor, but a mashrik gumos to even out these holes it's a rabbinic concern. So it could be that maybe for rabbinic it's enough to get out of it, but for Joraisa you can't just eliminate, or at least muksa.
No, the question is I think what I'm hearing from Kanan is right. If we're going to say that this is a rabbinic concern, so then why in the case of dragging something across the yard, it's again, if it unless you say that it's a psik reisha, right? So that so the psik reisha I think answers the question. If we just assume that it's a psik reisha, but if it's not a psik reisha, right? So then the question is so like, what's the concern? If we're going to allow you to drag the why would if we're going to say that in this case we're not going to allow you to sweep it. Why not in the case with the chair across the backyard of your lawn? Should we say, well, if we allow you to drag the chair across, even if it's not a psik reisha, we're gonna, you may do it and actually have it in mind. So that's.
I don't want to belabor, because I agree it's a great question, but what I'm trying to say is there could be a distinction between your doraisas, your muksa, which is a very old drabanan going back to Ezra potentially, and a gezerah that you're going to even out these holes. And for that, which is what we're dealing with now in these evening out these holes, since it's a later gezerah, intent might be enough to.
No, but gezerah, you would think the opposite, meaning if it's just a gezerah, then when you don't have the intent, it should be totally okay. That's I think that the smoothing out of holes is a deoraisa, I thought, not a derabanan. On pure dirt, it may be that in this example, because it's not, it's not totally clear to me whether we're talking about when we say that there's dirt on the trough, whether that dirt is actually the ground, meaning that the trough is really just like a circular thing that is being filled in, and you put on, literally on the ground, or whether it's, in all cases, it's really a kli, and the question is whether the kli has a dirt bottom. That is what is not clear to me. I will, like I said, I'm going to see if I can figure that out. I'm
understanding it as the first case. It's resting. It's a bottomless. And
that's what I assume. That's what I assume. But then in that case, then it shouldn't treat it any differently than if you were to smooth out earth. I thought that smoothing out earth to eliminate holes, if that was your intention, was actually a doraisa, and that's why sweeping in the ground, sweeping a ground floor is considered the rabbanan, not because. Well, I'm not. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Let me do some more thinking. But it's a very good question. Why, if we're making a gzera here, we wouldn't make the gzera essentially almost everywhere? What?
It'll all be revealed tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I'll be revealed tomorrow morning. All right, the notlim mifnei behema. Okay, so we can take feed from one animal and bring it to another. So tanachada, one brisa taught. So notlim mifnei behema shapia yafet. Okay, v'nosim lifnei behema shapia ra. Right, so you can take animal feed from one that has a good mouth to and put it in front of an animal that has a bad mouth. V'tanya idach, and it was taught in another brisa. Nolim lifnei behema shapia ra. V'nosim lifnei behema shapia yafet. And you can take it from the bad mouth to the good mouth. So Amar Abaye, so now we got to understand first of all, what in the world is a pia ra and what is a pia yafa, and are these actually disagreeing, or are they somehow agreeing, or are they talking about two completely different cases? So Idi, Abaye says both of them, Makame Chamra, Lakame Torah Shaklinan. They're both situations are actually saying that you can take food from a donkey and put it in front of an ox, right? So what's the Mikame Torah Lakame Kamra Lo Shaklina? But you cannot go in the other direction. Now, given the fact that one time we can go from Yafa to Ra, and the other time you can go from Ra to Yafa, that seems inconsistent. So we need to explain it. So Ha Diktane, that which in the first price, so we said no to Lemilifne Behema Shapia Yafa B'Chamor. Delay slay re-ray. So that's talking about when we said a yafa, that's aspect of a chamor that it doesn't drool. It does not, have its saliva spill into the food, and as a result, the food remains good food that it could go to any animal. So therefore, v'nosnu l'fnei behema shapia ra, and you can move it in front of an animal, namely an ox, bifara, an ox, that has a poor mouth, meaning that it would, when it eats food, its drool gets over all of the food, and so as a result, since it's getting over all of the food, it would become disgusting, right? And the para de isle re, right? It has drool it drools. And so as a result, that's why we can move it from the chamor, from the donkey, to the ox, but not the other way around. But now we have to understand, what does it mean, the other brisa? The other brisa seem to suggest that you could go in the opposite direction. So now we have to explain it. That which we said can go from the bad mouth, but chamor, that also refers to a donkey, but not about its drooling, but rather the lo daik ba'achal, right? It does not. It is not a choosy eater. It eats whatever will be put in front of it. Okay, and there you can put it in front of an animal that has a more discerning taste. The para right? It's more careful about what it eats. Okay, so now again we're going to deal. So again, that dealt with indirectly, not so clearly, but the concept here is all about muksa machmas gufo. That the question is sort of like, if it no longer is fit for an animal to eat, or would be outside of our realm of consideration or food, so then that's why you would not be able to move it. And so too, we're now going to deal with other situations of how we can move muksa in certain circumstances. So hakash shal gabi, so we're in the Mishnah now on Kuf Mem Aleph. Hakash shal gabi amita. If you have straw on a bed, lo yananenu biyado, you're not allowed to move it. You know, again, the straw is sort of like the stuff that you're sleeping on, so it's important for the bed, but it's not a kli, and it's not something that's been set aside in your mind, especially if it's on the bed, that it be something necessarily that you would that you want to be able to use on Shabbos. So the assumption is that it's not in that category, and so you can't move it with your hand. Ela minano begufo, you are allowed to use your body. Your not your hands, but the rest of your body to sort of like get yourself into the bed and with your body move the straw away. But if the straw was fit for an animal feed, so oshahaya alav karo sudden, or if there was a pillow or sheet on it from before Shabbos, so it was essentially thereby part of the bed, so then menano biyado, so then you would be allowed to move the straw even with your hand, because it wouldn't be considered muksa. It would be considered part of something that you were intending to use on Shabbos. So now the something that doesn't deal with Shabbos. So mechabesh. Let me switch my glasses. Now needing reading glasses. Mechabesh shel balei batim mitirim. So if we release, it's dealing with the situation where they are pressing for your pants, and so you would have two boards that you would put together in order to get a nice crease in the pants. All right. So again, or whatever garment you were trying to press. So if you have a mechabesh shel balei batim, a one that a typical person would have, a regular household will have. So then matirin, you're allowed to release that on Shabbos, okay, and get the garment that's there. Avalo koshin, but if it's but you cannot put it in the first place and press it down on the garment. The shel kosin lo yigabo, and if it's a launderer's press, so that if it's more of a professional product, so then you're not allowed to. So then lo yigaba, then you can't even touch it. Then you can't even release it. And again, lo yigaba really means to not move it. This is presumably a kli shemalakta le'eser. So you can take a look in Rashi, the last Rashi in the Mishnah, v'shal kosin lo yigabo, v'mneishu asui l'takena b'gadim, right? It's made to fix the clothing. V'tochvo b'chazaka u'mihada v'hatorah shalo domim l'stira. So if the issue actually is not one of muksa, excuse me. It's the fact is that you would be essentially, it's like taking something apart And so you would almost like be destroying something because it's so put together, so pressed together well. And so as a result, you would not be able to undo it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, in Haya Mutar Me'erev Shabbos, if it was a little bit released before Shabbos, so then Matir Kulos V'Shomto, then you can remove the garment, then you can release the rest of the way and remove the garment. And so again, the issue is that we can, once you have something that is well put together and is more of a professional kind of thing. So then the concern is that if you take that apart, then it's considered taking something apart on Shabbos, and so that's prohibited. But if it's already somewhat loose, so then again, because it's already somewhat released from each other, so then you'd be allowed to do it. In this understanding, there's no real disagreement between what Rabbi Yehuda says and the Tanna Kama.
So you want to get your clothes out, so because pressed clothing looks nicer, right?
Correct. That's the idea.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Pick
All
up
right. So the
from
Gemara.
on Friday afternoon.
Sorry.
To pick up from the dry cleaners on Friday afternoon.
Yes, exactly. And obviously, this is dealing with, even today there are those pant holders that press the pants together, a pant presser, and so that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. But obviously, it's the version that they would have in those days. So Gemara now cites a related ruling. So Amar of Nachman, Hai Pugla. Regarding, we actually saw this in connection with in the 18th parak about dealing with pulling things up and moving things incidentally, moving things that are muktzah incidentally. So we have this radish, milmalo lamata sharei. So if it's right side up, meaning that the dirt is that when you pick it up, a radish looks like this. Here.
The root is down and the sprout is up, right?
No, that's not working. Okay. It's more like an acorn than a radish, but whatever. All right. So the wider part is at the top and the narrower part is at the bottom.
Yeah.
And so if it's in that way, well, then when you pull it up, because they would store it in the earth, when you pull it up, you're not moving any of the dirt. You're not lifting any of the dirt. All the dirt would go, because you put it into the dirt line like this.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now, when you pull it up, all you do, you're making the, you're leaving a nice little hole, but then you're not moving any dirt with it. On the other hand, if it's the upside down, so then it would be asir. So then it's asir. Then it would be prohibited.
This has been picked already. You're not pulling it out from the roots. So
Correct. Absolutely, 100%. This is where it's already been picked.
Yeah.
Exactly. If it hadn't been picked, that would be Isser Doraisa. So Amar of Ada Barava. So Rav Ada Barava says, Amri Bey Rav. So the scholars of so they said, Tanina Deloku Rav Nachman. So this is not like Rav Nachman. We learned the Mishnah that it's not like Rav Nachman. So Hakash She'al Gabi Amita Lo Yananu V'Yado. So the straw that's on the bed, you can't move it with your hands, Aval Menano Begufo, but you can move it with your body. But if the straw was animal feed, it sounds like, this is our Mishnah. Oshahaya love kar osadin, or if there was a pillow or sheet on it, so then Menano V'Yado, then you can move it with your hand. Shmamina Tiltum Minatzad, Lo Shmei Tiltum. So we see that Tiltum Minatzad is not considered moving, meaning the fact that you can move the straw with your body is being analogized to the picking up of the radish. So that if you're just as you can move the straw with your body, but not with your hand. So too, the assumption is you must be able to move the dirt with the radish. And so Rav Nachman, who says that you can't do it, must disagree with our Mishnah. Okay, so Rav Nachman said that if the radish is upside down, so then you can't pick it up because you're moving the dirt. But in our Mishnah, they said you could use your body to move the straw. So that implies that so that's the potential inconsistency. And the Gemara concludes, Shmamina, actually, you're right. Our Mishnah shows that Rav Nachman's position is different. It disagrees from Rav Nachman's position. All right, so I'm Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, Hai pilpel midak chada chada bekata v'sakina shari. So if you, so now we're talking about some preparation from food preparation, and again, question of how exactly we can do it. So if you're crushing peppers, if you're crushing pepper, so then you can do it one at a time with the handle of the knife, okay? But tarte aser, but two at a time, you would not be allowed to do it. So Rava Amar came into Mishani. So why is it that it's that since you are doing it in a different manner, so then afilu tuvanami, so then you should be able to even do it, do more at a time. All right, and looking in Rashi notes chada chada. So lav tochenu el kalachar yad. It's not considered, although you are crushing something, because you're doing it kalachar yad. So that's why it's permitted. The commission. Oh wait, it said Rashi said the kamashani is the point that you deviated. You're doing it in a different way. Shalom b'rachaim v'shalom b'maducha. You're not doing it with a mortar and pestle. And so as a result, given the fact that it's you're doing it in a completely different way, so that's why you're allowed to do this crushing. So another ruling from Rav Yehuda. So I'm a Rav Yehuda. It says, if you're bathing in a stream of water, so then, and now you're going to get out. You need to dry yourself off as you're getting out before you get out, okay? Because we're concerned that you're going to carry the water that's on your body 4 amos in a carmelis, and as a result, that would be prohibited rabbinically, and so therefore you need to dry yourself off. So ihachi ki kanochis nami kodachi koko arba amos v'aser. So in second, what about going into the water? Aren't you pushing the water for 4 amos within the river or whatever the body of water is, and so and the water itself, that's considered part of a carmelis. So shouldn't that be also prohibited? So no, kocha b'carmelis lo gaz. The transferring of pushing something in that way within the sea, that was not prohibited by the rabbis, and so as a result, that is not prohibited. Now the poskim all say, 1 second, given this, how do we walk in the rain? And so there are 2 basic answers. One is basically that the rabbis never made a takana in that situation, or that there's or that because it's essentially if you're stuck in the rain, so then you have no other option. So as a result, it's not a problem.
We're not going to the mikvah.
Going to the mikvah. So going to the mikvah, well, you're in the building, so that's not going to be an issue. And obviously you dry yourself out before you leave. So that's not going to be the same concern. But the bigger issue is if it's raining. Yeah.
Assuming that the mikveh at that time was in a building, it wasn't a stream or a river.
Fair point. The same issue. You're absolutely right. The same issue would exist if it was a mikveh like an open body of water.
Are you saying if it's raining, you shouldn't step outside? Like if you had
no. So that's what I'm saying. So that's why I think that the simpler understanding is the fact that this takana of sort of quote unquote carrying. Some people say that you're not carrying enough water, but frankly, in a good downpour, you can get as wet as if you literally were in the water. So I don't buy that. I think that the answer is that the rabbis distinguished between these two situations, and they made it takana in this case, and they said they made a gzeira that you shouldn't do it in a case where you're actually in the water. But if you're just the rain, so then walking in the rain is not going to be the same thing.
It sounds to me like they obviously permitted umbrellas.
Why do you say that? The umbrella is an issue that we've been dealing with for a while here, but the whole concept of making an OL, the issue with the umbrella is the fact that you're making it in order to protect the thing that's underneath it. That the easier answer would be is how do you why is it not prohibited to just carry an umbrella? But that's already open.
If you walk in the rain, obviously it is.
I don't understand. So why I'm not following. Oh, because you must be able to use an umbrella because otherwise you'll get wet, and if you get wet, so then you can't walk. No, yeah, I got you. But then the problem is that you're holding the umbrella, so you're carrying the umbrella, and the whole point is that you can't be carrying it all because we're talking about a situation with no air.
One of those umbrella hats.
Umbrella hats. Well, we already learned that if the hat has a tefach of a brim, so then that becomes an issue, but or at least potentially an issue. All right. Anyway, the Gemara cites another Shabbos ruling. So, Amar Abaye, B'Yisem Rabbi Yehuda. So Abaye, and some say it was Rabbi Yehuda. Titshal Gabi Raglo. How do you deal with the clay that's on your foot? So then Mekanko Bakarka, Be'im Mekanko Bakoto. So it's saying you can scrape it off on the ground, but not on a wall. So I'm a Rava. 1 second. Does that make any sense? My time of a kota low. Why can't you do it on a wall? It must be that because you think that it looks like you're building. Habinyan haklahu. Is this that's like crazy building. That's building of a peasant. It's not a real kind of building. The rabbis wouldn't have prohibited that. So El Amarava, Rava says mechanical bakotel. You can do it on a wall. You can wipe your foot off on the wall, but you can't do it on the ground. Why? Right? Maybe you're going to come to level out the holes. Okay, and okay, all right. So the Gemara now cites another dispute. So Idmar, it was stated, Mar Bre the Ravina Amar. Actually doing both, scraping it on the wall and scraping it on the ground, they're both prohibited. Rav Papa Amar no, Rav Papa disagrees and says that both of them are mutter. So the Gemara asks, Lamar Bray the Ravina b'mai makachin. So a second, Mar Bray the Ravina said they're both prohibited. So how in the world do you scrape off your foot? So makachin kei b'kora. Right, so you can scrape it off on a beam. So therefore, neither. It's obviously not the ground, because then you'd be potentially leveling out a hole, and it's not a building, so you're not going to be building. So as a result, that's how you would have to scrape it. So Amarava, lo lisiv inish apume de laichem. You should not sit. A person should not sit essentially at the edge of the eruv, right by the lechi. That would be creating the space where one could carry. Why? Yeah, maybe you're going to have some kind of object and it will go beyond where you could carry, and then you're going to go get it and you'll carry it back. Okay, another ruling. Right? You can't have a barrel swing back and forth. Why? Again, you may come to level out holes in the ground. Rava says, lowly hadek inish, and this is again another along your lines question, Hanan, about why is this going to be a problem and yet the other things not going to be a problem. All right, so Rava says, Lola hadek inish udra puma de shisha. Right, so you cannot pack, wet cloth into the mouth of a jug. Because maybe you're going to come to squeeze. All right, and this is it raises the issue of dash. okay? Because maybe you'll come to squeeze the liquid out. So Amar Rav Kahana says, Titshal gabe big dough. So what do you do with some clay that gets on your clothing? So mechaspaso mibifnim, mechaspaso. Mechaskaso b'mechutz. So you can rub it from the inside, but not from the outside. Now, some say it's a question as to whether this is talking about when it's already dry or before it's dry. So some say it's before, and some say it's when it's still wet. Some say when it's dry. So Meisvei, they ask a question from Brisa. Titchal gavi minalo megaro begav sakin. So you can, so if you have clay on the shoe, you can scrape it off with the back of a knife. Shal bigdo megaro b'tzporin. And if it's on your garment, you can scratch it off with your nail. But you can't rub it. So in second, we just said you can rub it from the inside. So my lab says klal is, what do you think that doesn't the Brisa mean that you can't do any kind of rubbing? So Gemara answers as one would expect. Well, no. You can only not rub it from the outside, but you can rub it from the inside. All right. So Gemara now goes back to the shoe case. So Amar Rabbi Abahu, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Yanai, Margarin min al chadash avalo yashan. You can scrape clay off a new shoe, but not on an old shoe. Okay, why not? And then what? We got to ask what? B'memegaro, and with what can you do it? So Amar Rabbi Abahu begav sakin, with the back of a knife. Again, there's an idea that it's some kind of shinoi. It's not the normal way of doing it. So Amar Leah Usava. So a certain grandparent said to Rabbi Abahu. So Samei Didach Mikamei Hadasani Rabbi Chia. So you don't even need to. Your ruling is not necessary because we already have a brisa taught by Rabbi Chia. Ein Megarin Lo Min Al Chadash Lo Min Al Yashan. You cannot scrape either a new shoe or an old shoe. Below Yasuchas Raglo Shemen, and you can't put oil on your foot. Behu B'socha Min Al O B'socha Sandal. But with respect to putting the oil on your foot, that's when it's inside the shoe already. Okay? Aval Sak Es Raglo Shemen, but you can put your oil on your foot. Umaniach b'socham haminal, and then put it in the shoe. Oh, b'socha sandal, or put it in the sandal. All right. So the point is that you can do it indirectly, but you can't do it directly.
What's the
Sorry.
What's the concern here, or what is the?
So that's a good question. So the concern is that the oil will get on the leather shoe, and then you'll end up working the leather. And so there's one of the prohibitions of Shabbos is ibud, and ibud is tanning, and so that's the concern. And we're going to get to that specifically in just a moment. All right. So all right. V'sakol gufo shemen u'misagel al gabi katav loya. But you can put oil on your body and then roll on top of the leather, on top of a leather sheet. And then you don't need to worry about it. Again, so now we're going to qualify it. So Amar Rav Chisda, lo shano elo tzachtzcho. So this was only taught, where the intent was to, where the purpose was to just polish the leather. La'abdo, to actually tan the leather, asur. 1 second, the Gemara asks, La'abdo pshita. 1 second. It's obvious that you can't tan the leather. If that was your intention, of course you can't do that. So that can't pursue. And moreover, does anybody really allow you to actually intentionally polish the leather? No. Ella idmar hachi idmar. This is what it should have said. Amar Rav Chisda, lo shanu ella shir letzachtzcho. the amount that you're using either on your body, wherever, on your foot, etc., can only be the amount that would be sufficient to polish. So the point is that if you were to use the volume that would cause tanning, so then that's prohibited even if you're doing it in a shinoi. But if, on the other hand, you don't have enough to do any tanning, and the amount is only enough to do some polishing, so then the fact that you're essentially doing it in this sort of kalacher yad way, this unusual way, so then that would not be prohibited. All right, so Tana Rabbanan, the rabbi is taught in Brisa. So lo yetze katan b'minal gadol. A person should not go out in too large shoes. Okay, aval yotzehu b'chalukado. But you can go out wearing too large a shirt. V'lo teitei isha b'minal merupa. And a woman should not go out you wearing a torn shoe. V'lo tachalotzbo. And she should not perform chalitza with such a shoe. But if she did, then the chalitza is still a good chalitza. Now note that the point here is, the chalitza point is sort of like by the way, but the concern is that you'll go out and then you'll see that it's torn, and then you'll realize, oh my gosh, I'm being seen in this inappropriate shoe, and I'm going to carry it, and so that's the concern. And we can't go out with a new shoe. So now the Gemara wonders what's going on. So what's this shoe that we're talking about? But minal shel isha, a woman's new shoe, right? So Tani bar kapara, lo shanu ela shelo yatsa bo sha achas mi'be'od yom. That's talking about when it says not for a woman not to go out with a new shoe. That's because that's as long as she did not wear it already before Shabbos, right? If she wore it before Shabbos, Erev Shabbos mutar, so then it would be okay for her to go out, because the point is the concern is, will she take it? Will somebody take it off in order to, and then end up carrying it? And if and in the case of if she's already worn it, so then this concern is not a concern. But
why is it just a woman's shoe? I mean, a man, the shoe doesn't fit, he might also take it off or something.
Right. So it's actually interesting. So let's take a look in Rashi. So Rashi says it's 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14 lines down in the narrow lines. So we're going to explain it as he's going to explain. That we're talking about a situation where you did not wear it earlier. Right? If it doesn't fit her. So she'll know that it fits her hula. So therefore she won't actually be concerned about it. So you ask a good question, my recollection, I want to make sure to get the answer right about the men's shoe.
I mean, I've worn shoes, that sometimes, you wear a new shoe and it doesn't fit, it's giving you calluses, or, it's really uncomfortable. If there's no Eruv, you might take it off. Right.
No, I think that I have to remember what the answer is. Yeah. Let me check. That's a good question.
James, what were you saying?
Women frequently choose fashion over function.
Right. So I seem to recall that the answer is that for a man, that even just wearing a sort of like a new shoe that had not been tested at all, maybe a problem as well. And it's only that a woman, if she wore it already, so then we're not worried about it. But with a man, unless it's sort of like been worn a bunch, so then a man actually needs more wearing than a woman, because a woman, wouldn't want to take off her shoe in public.
Right.
That's what I seem to recall, but I want to double check that.
The way the art scroll translates Rashi, it's the opposite. Their women wanted the shoes to fit perfectly or close to perfectly, and if it wouldn't, then she would take it off, and obviously we don't want her to take her shoes off in public.
Right.
Not sneeze or anything because of carrying.
Right. So what about men?
The Gemara, for once in a lifetime, cares about women.
No, but okay. Yeah. All right.
I'm sorry, you walked into that.
I did walk into that. All right.
Maybe it just assumes a man would just deal with it or something like that.
That's one way of reading it. That's why I wanted to double check, because I couldn't remember exactly the details of how it worked out, but the point was that one was they're concerned about it, and the other one is they're not concerned about it. But
as we were talking, I continued reading in the note. So the note continued. So that was Rashi, and the Chidushei Aran says the reason women are different because they're wearing stockings, which I assume was some sort of sock, which would protect their foot. So hence, walking around, they wouldn't be barefoot. They would still have some sort of protection.
Got it. So the idea is that with a man's never going to take it off because he has nothing underneath it, is what you're saying. And so as a result, even if it doesn't fit, they're gonna leave it on. All right, that's a nice answer. Yishkach. All right. So how are we doing? Okay. So Tanachada. So we had a brisa that says, so shomtim minal gabe imus, right? So you can so if you have a shoe form, so you can take the shoe off on Shabbos, all right? But then we had another brisa that says, "Ein shomtin," you can't do it. So how do we differentiate? How do we reconcile these two brises? Okay, so lo kashya, ha Rabbi Lezer, ha Rabbanan. One is Rabbi Lezer and one's Rabbanan. Ditznan mina shal gabi imus. If you have a shoe that's on the shoe form, Rabbi Lezer mitayar v'chachamim mitamim. Rabbi Lezer says it's tahor because the whole thing is not a kli, and so as a result, it's and so as a result for him, it would presumably be muksa, for 1 second, is that right? Right, yeah. And then but the Chachamim say no, it's already a kli, and so because it's already a kli, so then that shows that it's something that could be moved on Shabbos, and so as a result, you would be able to remove it on Shabbos. So hani chalarava the amar davar shemalachta le'isr bein l'tzarach gufo bein l'tzarach makomo mutter. So in second, the implication is that this kli of the shoe form is if it's a kli, so then it is a kli shemalachta le'isr. And if you can, and so it makes sense that you can remove it if it's a kli shemalachta le'isr. If you say that you can move it l'tzarach gufo or l'tzarach makomo, if you can move it for itself or for its place, so then everything is great. So Shapir, Elala Abaye de Amr l'tzarach gufo mutter l'tzarach makomo asar. But Abaye says that you can only move it for l'tzarach gufo to use it for a permitted purpose. But l'tzarach makomo is asar, but you can't just move it because you need the place, and presumably this is moving it because you need the place because you want to take the shoe off of it. So ma'ikalamemer. So if according to that, how does that explain the situation? Because then even if you held like Abaye, even if you held like the Rabbanan, it would still be usher. So hakabamayas. Again, it would be usher because it would be a kli shemalachta le'isr, and you could only move it for a permitted purpose. And the point is that the shoe is on it and is being formed by it, and so as a result, when you take it off, you're essentially it is not doing it for itself, you're doing it for the place. You're essentially taking advantage of using what was the location of the shoe form and removing the shoe off of it. So as a result, according to Abaye, even if you held like the Rabbanan, you would still not be allowed to do it. So so then this is the case that we're talking about. We're talking about where the shoe was only loosely on the form. And so as a result, you can remove the shoe because it can be, you don't have to move the form at all. All right. So as a result, then even according to Abaye, it would be all okay. So the Tanya, and indeed we have a brisa that supports this. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Im haya rafoi mutar, if it was already loose, so then it is permitted. So Tanya de rafoi. So second, Rabbi Yehuda seems to say that it's permitted because it was loose. Hello, rafoi, low. That implies that if it was not loose, then it would be prohibited. But in that case, so that makes sense if you go according to Abaye, because Abaye would explain that you can't move it because you're moving it l'tzarach makomo, and as a result, that's why you would, even if it were tight, you would not, if the shoe were on the holder tightly, so then you would not be able to move it, because then you would be trying to move it l'tzarach makomo, and that would be prohibited. But according to Rava, he says that it's good either way. So how can we remove? How can our teaching of the saying that it's only good if it's loose and not if it's tight be consistent with Rava? Rava should enable us to remove the shoe even if it's tight on the form. So my area roughly. So then let's go back and understand, why did Rabbi Yehuda teach that it was permitted because it was loose? This is finishing up the question, right? So why should Rabbi Yehuda have taught us that it's only permitted when it's loose? According to Rava, even if it was not loose, it should also be permitted. So Hahi de Rabbi Yehuda Mishum de Rabbi Lezer, who it must be. So that brisa that says Rabbi Yehuda is according to Rabbi Lezer, and of course Rabbi Lezer said that it is tahor, that it is not a kli at all, and therefore he maintains that the shoe is okay because the shoe will be a kli, but the form itself is not a kli, and as a result, if the form is not a kli, so then it's muksa machmas gufo, and muksa machmas gufo is something that can't be moved for any reason. You can't move it l'tzarach makomo, move it l'tzarach gufo. You can't move it for any reason. So that's why if you say that that's why Rabbi Yehuda would say that it has to be loose, because only when it's loose do you not have to move the form as well. The Tanya, and we see this is consistent with the Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Mishum Rabbi Lezer, Im Haya Rafoi Mutter. Right? So we see that Rabbi Yehuda is saying in the name of Rabbi Lezer that if it's loose, that's when it's mutter. So we've essentially proven that what we could have just ended with by noting the fact that there was another Brisa that specifically says that Rabbi Lezer was saying this in the name of Rabbi Yehuda was saying this in the name of Rabbi Lezer. So then Hadron Alaf Tolan. So we finished the Perek, and this is where we will pick up tomorrow.
Oh.
All right. So I have two
thank you, Rabbi.
questions that I will come back to everybody with tomorrow. One is, why not say Gzeira every time? And the second is just double checking that men's shoe issue. So I wish everyone a good night, a Shavua Tov. And if you're interested in the environment, YCT is putting on an interesting program tomorrow, and on Torah and the environment. We have some fascinating speakers, including former Riverdale resident Rabbi Barry Kornblau and others. And so welcome you to participate. You can register, just do a quick Google search or search on Facebook for me, and I posted it in on Facebook. So
When is it? When is it?
that is from 9 o'clock until 11:15 tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Give it a shot. Okay.
All right. Be well,
Okay.
everybody. Have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you, Mother Tov.
Tov.
Ugh.
Brooks, yeah.